in arms. This is going to be a video where I discuss the armor of Total War Rome 2. And armor is pretty important. It can mean the difference between dead soldiers and soldiers that are able to fight on. Now the armor consists of two different values, the base value and the shield value. And the base value is the body armor the soldier is wearing, and the shield value is of course the shield. And these combined will have a chance to reduce the damage taken. But weapon damage also consists of two types of damage. You have your base damage, which can be blocked, and you have your armor piercing damage, which can't be blocked, at least not in melee. For missiles it's slightly different, since if we look at these mercenary Thracian peltas, they have 41 missile damage, 12 of it is armor piercing damage, but the shields have a chance to block the entirety of the damage from a missile, about 50% for these shield bearers with their hoplon shields. But in melee there is no such thing. In melee it's the melee defense that's going to prevent you from being hit, and it's the armor that's going to enable you to take less damage when you are hit. So on average there are two distinct differences between weapons for both cavalry and for infantry. You have your weapons that have a fairly high amount of base damage, like swords. They have a decent amount of base damage. Barbarian swords have even more. These guys have 34 base damage, but only 4 armor piercing damage, so very little armor piercing damage. The Royal Peltasts have more weapon damage, and that is because they have more armor piercing damage. These guys are very good against armor. But at the more extreme end of the scale, we have these, let's see, where are they? Yeah, these Agrianian Axemen. Now at first glance it might look like their weapon damage of 26 is not very good, but 10 of that damage will be armor piercing. So 10 of the damage is going to go straight through the armor, and that is quite a lot. It has twice the armor penetration capabilities of thorax swords, almost 3 times, and twice the capabilities of units like the shield bearers. Now the way armor works is that if you, let's say that these shield bearers are attacked by these, let's see, they are attacked by these Agrianian Axemen, and the Agrianian Axemen rolls against the armor, the melee defense of the shield bearer, and the Agrianian Axemen lands a hit. Now the armor piercing damage is going to be applied regardless, so that's automatic. The 10 armor piercing damage is done, but the base damage of 16 has a chance to be blocked completely, and that is done by a roll against the armor value of the shield bearer. So if the shield bearer, imagine the shield bearer has a 115 sided dice, if that's possible, and he rolls the dice, and the number he rolls is the amount of damage being subtracted from the base damage taken. So for example, that means that if he rolls anywhere from 1 to 16, he will take damage. If he rolls anywhere from let's see what the base damage was. If he rolls anywhere from 1 to anywhere from 1 to 16, he's going to take anywhere from 1 to 16 damage. If he rolls a 1, he's going to take 15 damage. If he rolls a 2, he's going to take 14 damage, and so on. If he rolls a 16, he's going to take 0 damage. And anything from 16 and above is going to completely remove the base damage that is being done to this shield bearer. So it's going to give him a pretty good chance of ignoring base damage, but the armor piercing damage is still going to be applied. In cases where it's very important to be able to ignore a lot, or have a good chance to be able to ignore a lot of base damage, would be, for example, against charging cavalry. So imagine these shield bearers are being charged by this companion cavalry, and this companion cavalry has a charge bonus of 76. This means that its weapon damage is going to increase to 103 on the charge. Now, this still only gives the shield bearers a slim chance of avoiding all the base damage being done here, because that's going to do 76 plus 15. It's going to do 91 base damage, so they have a small chance of of avoiding all the damage, but they're probably going to reduce enough of the damage so that they'll be able to survive with their 65 health. But of course, the companion cavalry also has a pretty decent lance with, let's see here, I think it's 12, yeah, 12 armor piercing damage. So the companion is going, the shield bearer is going to have to block quite a lot of the damage in order to stay alive from a charging companion cavalry. So that's it. Armor, that's basically how armor works. And having a shield is pretty important in that it allows you to ignore armor piercing damage from incoming missiles. Now, for example, like these cataphracts, they have extremely good armor, 110 armor, but since they don't have shields, all missile fire against these guys is going to do at least some damage. Now, but they're going to have a very good chance of blocking the base damage. So if you're, for example, firing at them with these Persian light archers, they have 4 armor piercing damage. These guys have 120 health, so it's going to take 30 arrows to kill a single cataphract, which basically means that if all shots hit, and all shots won't hit, but these guys, they have 90 times 15, so they have 900 armor. If all of these guys fire at a unit of royal cataphracts and all of the shots hit, so they will use more than 2 minutes to expend all their ammunition on all of these royal cataphracts, and the absolute best that they can hope for is to kill 30 of them under ideal conditions where all of the shots hit, if only armor penetrating damage is applied. So in that case, it might be more effective if you're able to get close enough to fire at them with mercenary peltas, because they have weapon damage of, well, that's wrong. Yeah, that's the melee attack, sorry. The missile damage, of course, is 12 armor piercing damage and 20 base damage. And they also have a bonus against large, so a bonus against horses, elephants, and camels. And that's going to help them to take down these guys. So now you hopefully understand a bit more, if you didn't know before, about how armor works and why it sometimes seems like units with very high armor that should be able to survive a lot of damage, why they are dropping faster than you would think they would, because armor won't really protect them 100% against taking damage. And for units like these royal peltasts, for example, they do extremely well against Roman infantry, and part of that is their high melee attack, and part of that is their high armor piercing damage. So if we compare these guys to, let's say we compare them to the Praetorian Guard of Rome. Now the Praetorian Guard of Rome have about the same amount of melee attack. Their weapon damage is very good at 39, but they lack 1 point of armor piercing compared to the royal peltasts. So that might make a difference in how much damage they are doing, because while 1 isn't really a lot, it is still around a 15% higher amount of armor piercing damage. And for these royal peltasts that are 120 men in a unit, if each of those guys hit Praetorian Guard and the Praetorian Guard hit back, that 1 extra point means that they will kill 2 extra Praetorian Guard per melee hit in terms of the amount of damage taken. So these Praetorian, they are 65 health, so slightly less than 2, but the damage difference over an extended melee, and especially now that melees take quite some time, can be quite significant. And the same can be said for spears. Now I'm going a bit off on a tangent here, but bear with me. For the spears, there are major differences in the armor piercing damage of spears. So these Illyrian noble hoplites, for example, they are extremely cost-effective hoplite units. And part of the reason is because they have 8 armor piercing damage. Now if we compare this to the more expensive shield bearers of Macedon, they only have 5 armor piercing damage. So 3 more for the shield bearer, for the RDA Illyrian noble hoplites. And the Illyrian raiders and the axemen also have low base weapon damage, but they have very high armor piercing damage of 10. And the same for the Suebi units that have just abysmal weapon damage. The club units, the wolf warriors, have 15 weapon damage. but they have 9 armor piercing damage and they have a bonus versus infantry. They are still pretty crappy units in this patch, but same with the Bloodsworn, they have a pretty good amount of armor piercing damage, and even the Club Levy has a pretty decent amount of armor piercing damage. So they will do quite a lot of damage each time they hit 2 heavily armored opponents, but they won't really be able to take the damage themselves. Hopefully this was useful, something you can bring to good effect on the battlefield, and I'll see you there.